Today I slacked off terribly and I woke up late, but I was able to put on my lotion and hurry up to school pretty fast. And I woke up around 8:40 a.m. and the weather was very hot, though. Again in the car, I was planning to bring one of my card games to school, but I forgot to bring it as I was heading to school, so I'll have to depend heavily on the library at lunch. So later on, and for period one, we had our final numbers quiz, which I think again I failed for two questions in the millions, but the class remained attentive as I noticed a few others were also nervous. Next was the final part of the 10 verb review for verbs such as reconocer or utilizar. Next, we are to present our project shirts from our desks, and we practiced in groups before we apparently thought that we're going to go up. I found it a little awkward since we stood from our desks, but the first one stood up a little bit awkwardly and stuttered, but they're able to push through nonetheless. And we pronounced a random Egyptian word for one of the others, as one of the students knows that language, but the class was chuckling at it because a lot of people did fail to pronounce it. But I wanted to go up, but I hesitated, but she didn't pick everybody, sadly. Later was Cecilia and Alex's article, and we kept reading and translated what we had trouble with. We also learned that the parents of Alex wanted him to get big muscles and to find a real girlfriend. I also needed help with the word pulpra, which I thought my teacher said whore, but it means poor. So a lot of very much close words right there. But anyways, we continued to see in how Alex saw Cecilia outside his window and what happened to them. Then it became the dramatic his love to his life story as it kept moving on. And I was telling like my partner like, why are we reading this? This is like 100,000 words. I had like bad sleep, slept at 2 a.m. today for shopping on Amazon. But he said everybody's sleepy. Even he too just wants to go home and sleep. But mostly everybody was calm, and we definitely laughed at Cecilia and Alex in these a little Spanish article novel right here. Heading down to period two, today is our first fun Friday, and she said that we'll be doing something fun. And later, I realized the person forgot to bring their coffee from first period, if I remember. And I noticed as I was leaving first period that yes, I actually saw coffee there. So I was thinking something regardless. Today was also congratulated by football as another one of the staff went up to pick up their stuff. But the Kahoot was random, but I made sure to pull out my mouse just in case I was going to win. But what I don't like is that the Kahoot uses fledged characters now, so it does look kind of odd. But it's the wobble seeing them like move around. But it was all Disney questions such as what did Aladdin steal in the market, or name all of Cinderella's sisters. The classical one was where does cars take place, which is always something that I will remember, and it's Radiator Springs. My answers were 50-50 since my knowledge was reduced since then. I've not watched a Disney movie in at least an internet century. And she mentioned after the game is that our first unit is going to be about identity, and our first book is also one by Cisneros. She said for identity that in the world we must present ourselves, and perception matters to how we're viewed as. One can view themselves as this thing while others might see something completely different. And she said in order to honor this as we grow, we are to draw a poster about our identity and use plenty of humorous takes and symbolisms that represent us, such as mountains or a sport that we like. And this is a poster project. We draw and sketch ourselves, and then we draw things that represent us. I had trouble doing it because of what I had to draw, but I noticed others also used, well, other sites to trace out something, but it was mostly quiet, and I joked about some things here and there. I was able to catch my own pace and draw whatever my mind asked for. I drew horizontal, but class ended pretty fast beyond this point. The teacher said she did not like the weather at all for humidity, and as for most of this class, it was just people talking around. I don't really have too much information. So there was one thing that I remember beyond in another table of which I overheard. Moving down to math, today I talked to the teacher about the recent B scores that have been going on across the league, and he said he's excited to watch the Pirates pretty soon, although he's not a fan of them. Later, that was our next 10 minutes extra time for the CASP quiz, which is like two questions. I heard today in a chat as we were scrolling through our stuff, sometimes the teacher sees squirrels or birds, and sometimes in his neighborhood, people leave feed outs for these given animals. So it's practically pets that are around the place. And he kept saying no, that his family will not get a pet. So after all of this talk and the music that was playing, we had our quiz, and it was all the basic elementary stuff. We had one problem that uses a fraction, so I simplified that fraction and stopped instead of finding its reciprocal. And for the excess 2 minutes left from this quiz time, the teacher spoke about ice cream. And other people, such as Jeremiah, Jude, Gavin, and Ronnie and Seth, they're all picked randomly by the teacher later on. But a lot of people said Handel's is a good ice cream place. Others said that coffee flavor ice cream is better. And others argued that vanilla flavor is better. But anyways, I said handles. And in math, this time we have 1.3 lesson number. And surprisingly, for random numbers this time, Gavin got picked. So he was caught off guard, just like me yesterday, for creating the table of the exponential equation 2 to the power of x. And Sebastian got picked for the next questions of domain and range. And he said dang, because he was also caught off guard too. We learned that 2 to the power of x never goes lower than 0. And we also drew the inverse of this by reversing the original table of values. And the teacher kept on picking random people. And a lot of people were still talking here and there. And we finished up this first part. But I know that Ronnie and Seth got picked a few times. So in short conversation, I heard that someone used to eat cookie dough and gummy bears, which I find pretty disgusting in my opinion, especially if those cookies are not baked. For extras, the teacher started a pizza conversation, and some answered barbecue and chicken, some others pepperoni and pineapple. But anyways, we only had 5 minutes left, so we answered one single problem the teacher wanted us to do, is that if important bases are the same and they're already set equal, for example, such as 3 to the power of 4x plus 5 is equal to the 3 to the power of 7x minus 13, we should bypass the 3 and just treat it as a linear equation and eventually solve for it. Anyways, most of this was eventually done, and for period 4 science, I told Ted that I switched out, and he was not as surprised, but as I entered the class, there was this crazy entourage as I came in. Teacher was on a phone call, the TA was touring students on the lizard pet, I saw that other girl and I noticed some other pins on the ceiling. And the boy in my table took them out and they're all talking about how some student got in trouble now that the office is calm. And apparently someone got in trouble a few periods ago, but next was a teacher lecture about glorified notes on the Green Revolution and how ineffective it is. The teacher said that if the class talks during a video, she's going to be very mad and turn it into a quiz instead. But I also noticed that there was also a lizard nearby that the TA was so curious about and also toured the students earlier. I noticed even then, as the teacher was talking, someone gave me a lollipop that was unopened, and I said like nothing in here, right? And they laughed out loud. Later, I did see the TA hand a few words here and there as the teacher was busy doing something, though I did also laugh slightly. Lights were off as there was how ineffective it is specifically in terms of sustainability. And there was a lizard pet as I noticed when the lights were off trying to escape. Next was drawing the Green Revolution and its methodologies. The boys at my table were definitely messing with each other, and I almost laughed a few times. So, but nonetheless, we filled out pros and cons, and we learned about a story when my teacher's mom was a kid. Whatever food is available in the store is whatever is available for the season. Today, every food is available. Most of the time, we can simply just buy off the store. For cons, she said that monoculture is effective, but says that if it's something that's always like this, it would destroy biodiversity, and that the lizard will invade the extended family to eat all the crops that are planted, and that whoever is planting all this stuff, it costed this green revolution costed a ton of money and was pretty much unsustainable in the long run. The thing that someone said is that where does the food chain start was a question, and someone said water. So the class was laughing for a little bit. But for this paper, we had to fill out this mini project where we have to list the pros and cons about why this is so inefficient and the green revolution itself. And she noticed how farms go bankrupt as a result of monopolies, and she said that because certain crops are produced so much, like no one eats like bowls of corn every single day or bowls of wheat flour, but she says rather the products that are made from it, the corn flour, wheat flour, that's sold as others and eventually broken down into processed forms. And she said that biodiversity allows resilience. She went on that even then, stuff that is used for these plants, such as phosphates, can cause cancer in excess when there's too much. She also noted that even richest farmers can get the rarest types of cancer just because of these excess. She also says that nitrates can also cause algae bloom. So we had to list this in our mini project, but I did notice that a lot of people were talking here. But heading down to lunch, I drifted around, but I was super excited to play and have fun. And I hurried to the library, but sadly, Levi and James did not show up, so I spent the 10 minutes doing literally nothing. But nonetheless, after that, I had a few short talks with a friend nearby. And then thus I moved back and I talked to others such as Hannah, but I wasn't specific in conversation. And later, I drifted back to James and Levi's group to remind them that there's an Uno game today. But they said they forgot, but they'll show up next Friday. Which, okay, well, with Devin's group, I joked about a few things here and there about water bottles, but they talked about for the hot weather, they can't do too much. As for that case, the weather was hot, so it was difficult to even move around. But I drifted from library again to middle B to then C, then walked to class for history. Credit to that one Chinese friend of whom I also talked to. Getting done to period 5, today I talked to my old teacher for history class and asked him how he's doing, but he was mostly brief and he said hi to me. But I noticed that in his class, just like last year when I was in there, he had the bell ringers for that next class. But in this class, I eventually moved on from that one and later moved on to my actual class and then finished up my project. The teacher looked around, but we had no bell working today. My project was simple. While others were made more modular and artistic, I made mostly simple and I kind of kept to the basics, though most of the class was quiet. So I was thinking about something so I didn't get distracted for 25 minutes straight. So there was piano music they played to calm me down, though the teacher remained mostly busy. She did come around occasionally here and there to mention no one was behind anything, but it wasn't really too much. And heading down to arts, today we are handed two papers and we are to fold the number one to four. The first part is to blind draw and draw blindly. I drew the face on our table without looking, so we had to put ourselves. We did it because, well, she wanted to teach us that in drawing, there's no right or wrong. That we have to condition ourselves when drawing is that even if a picture or something looks objectively terrible, what matters is how we improve on it. It's its perception to us because someone can still view a given object as still going to be correct, even though it might still look wrong to others. So she's trying to teach us that. But part two was to also draw, but no lifting the hands. The class was confused and some even laughed at this idea, but I found this one pretty simple too. And I found this continuous art easier. For the class, they remained excited, but I noticed that these are mostly freshmen and sophomores and people who just transfer out of classes because they can't do this. But part three is draw with a non-dominant hand. And I realized I don't just have to draw; I can also decorate it and give it its own artistic life. So I realized my favorite use is a non-dominant hand because that is so much more simpler. But the simpler one is a continuous without actually lifting the pencil. But anyways, though, number four is how we originally draw it using our dominant hand. So I was nervous when doing this, but I think I got it. Anyways, like the other classes I've attended, there's always some sort of piano music playing in the background. But I think my dominant hand was clear, but I drew far more messier. So even though most people were kind of chill with the last option, I just had a really strong one, I'll be honest. Even though it is probably the best one out of the four. But my class table was mostly quiet. They transferred because they had no spots for their other rosters and classes that are there. So in my drawing, I used the shape of parabolas and exponents to carve a design out of the draw. After this, heading out from period 6 was as hot as always. I never liked the sun in the summer weather, so this was a little bit of a challenge. But nonetheless, I was able to make it home, and eventually I finished up the day. But to also add on some extra details, today, since I did not even eat anything, I went with my mom and my her friend to a local all-you-can-eat meat restaurant. It's the type of restaurant, a Korean style, where you have to grill and cook the meat yourself. I think I was so picky when I was going to this restaurant because I'm very picky in the food that I want to eat. If the meat that I'm eating is too strong, or if the shrimp that I'm eating is too soggy, like I'm just going to throw that back in the griller and just put it back, or simply order something else. Like I observed myself because I was like ordering so much McNuggets and a lot of potato fries because taking that time to cook the meat itself took so much time, and I was like super hungry. And to be fair, it was super confusing. And just that idea that when I'm hungry, well, I am sometimes not me, but when it comes to all you can eat restaurants, I think if you choose the wrong type of meat, if it's too strong of a flavor, it's gonna be kind of like umami taste. Like you're not going to like it, so you'd end up switching to something else. So that was my option right there, because this restaurant is smaller than a typical all you can eat restaurant, and there's more seasonings, and the menu too is so. But other than that, I know friends and my mom absolutely loved it. But I just ordered just shrimp and white shrimp so I can eat it simpler. But even then, the shrimp was a little bit undercooked, so I might get a foodborne illness sometime. But I really hope not. But as past that part, it was mostly calm, and I still had that umami taste after when I went home and I was trying to use a restroom. It just kind of messed up with me again because I felt like I was gonna throw up. Because eating that strong flavored meat and then eating that like shrimp that is slightly undercooked, I just don't like that experience. But thankfully, I did not throw up.